I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Amanda, for about 5 years. We met in college, hit it off pretty quick, and got married right after she finished her master. We were pretty solid, or so I thought. She was always a little bit of a bitch, sarcastic, sharp-tongued, always ready with a snarky comment. But I thought that was just her way of being funny. Turns out, she's just really good at hiding a lot of shit from me. We decided to take a honeymoon to Hawaii after the wedding, just the two of us. It was supposed to be perfect, sun, surf, wine, and just us. But something felt off from the start. Amanda was more distracted than usual, snapping at me for little things, pulling her phone out constantly. I chalked it up to wedding stress, or maybe she was just tired. I didn't want to overthink it. Still, I noticed she was hiding her phone more than she ever did before, and deleting messages faster than I could see them. One night, we went out for dinner at this little seaside restaurant, and Amanda got a little too drunk. She was laughing, teasing, but I caught her sneaking her phone out and quickly hiding it when I looked her way. I didn't think much of it at the time, just a drunk girl being silly. But later, I found her phone on the hotel nightstand while she was in the shower. I didn't mean to snoop, but I couldn't help myself. I unlocked it, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There were dozens of texts from someone named Jake. They weren't just friendly or flirty. They were explicit, suggestive, talking about hooking up, meeting for sex, and all kinds of other shit. The messages weren't just recent. Some of them were from days before we even got there. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. My heart was pounding, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. I kept thinking, this has to be a mistake. But there were pictures, a few of her in different bikinis, and one that she clearly didn't realize was taken from the bathroom door while she was in the shower. I saw her hands, her face, the way she posed like. She knew she was being sexy. I didn't wake her up that night. I just sat there staring at her phone, trying to process what I'd just seen. My mind was racing. Was this a one-time thing? Did she really cheat on me during our honeymoon? I mean, after everything we've been through, how could she do this? I kept telling myself maybe it was just some flirtation, some stupid mistake. But the evidence was there, plain as day. The next morning, when she got out of bed, I saw her come out of the bathroom, smiling, acting like nothing had happened. I confronted her when she sat down to breakfast. I was shaking, trying to keep my voice steady. I told her I saw the messages, that I knew about Jake, and I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. Her reaction: she rolled her eyes, looked at me like I was a damn idiot, and said, "Oh, that's nothing. Just some guy I met at a bar. We texted a little, it's no big deal." She smirked like she thought I was overreacting. I remember feeling a strange mix of anger and confusion. How could she be so dismissive? How could she just brush it off like it was nothing? She kept denying everything, telling me I was paranoid, that I was overthinking, that I was just insecure. She said I was making a big deal out of nothing, that she loved me and this Jake was just some stupid mistake, a moment of weakness. But I knew, I could feel it, that this was bigger than just a single mistake. This was betrayal. We'd only just started our life together and she was already screwing around. It felt like my world was falling apart and I didn't even know how to respond. I just sat there, stunned, trying to hold it together, wondering how I had missed all the signs, how I was so blind to what had been happening right under my nose. After that breakfast confrontation, everything felt like it was shattering around me. Amanda's face was still smug, like she thought she'd won some kind of argument. She was so dismissive, so unapologetic, that I started questioning whether I was just overreacting, whether I was the one wrong for noticing. But deep down, I knew the truth. The evidence was right there, staring me in the face, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I spent the next couple of days spiraling. I couldn't focus at all. My mind kept circling back to what I saw. I kept thinking about the pictures, the messages, her dismissive attitude, how she brushed off my concerns like they were nothing. I realized I had been so blind, so trusting, that I never even suspected she was capable of cheating on me during what was supposed to be the happiest trip of our lives. I kept asking myself, was this just a fling? Or was this something more? I was too afraid to dig deeper, too scared of what I might find. Then out of nowhere, she dropped the bombshell that threw me into even more chaos. Amanda told me she was pregnant. I swear my stomach sank like I'd been punched again. I asked her what she meant and she just smiled, all fake and bitchy, saying, "Well, it's yours, obviously. You're the only one I've been with." And honestly, I guess I was just too stupid to see how much I needed a baby to keep me from losing my mind. It was like she was mocking me, twisting everything into some sick joke. I didn't even know what to say. I just sat there, stunned, trying to process the fact that she was pregnant with a kid I wasn't even sure was mine anymore. I looked at her, trying to read her face, but it was like she was completely detached from what was happening. She kept lying, saying she and Jake had just messy sex, that she didn't mean for it to happen, and that the pregnancy was just a fluke. She told me she loved me, that she'd never actually wanted to hurt me, but I could see through her bullshit. She was furious, bitter, and acting like I was the one overreacting. Her tone was sharp, her words laced with venom. She was angry at me for catching her, at the world, at herself, I guess. And I felt this mixture of heartbreak, rage, and despair. I wondered if I was just a fool for still loving her, or if I was right to want revenge. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had to get out of this mess. I couldn't stay with someone who thought cheating was just some mistake, who dismissed me like I was nothing. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was broken, that I'd lost something I could never get back. That love I had for her, the trust I once had, was now shattered into a million pieces. I kept asking myself, was I going to be a victim of this betrayal, or was I just fool enough to still hope she'd change? That night, I stayed up, staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what to do next. I knew I had to confront her again, ask her the questions I wasn't ready to hear the first time, and figure out the truth of what she really wanted. But part of me was already planning my revenge, an idea that grew in my mind, fueled by all the pain and betrayal I was feeling. I didn't want to just walk away quietly. I wanted her to feel what I felt, to understand the damage she'd done. I wasn't sure how yet, but I knew I'd come up with something. My mind was racing. I was angry, hurt, and more lost than I'd ever been before. The days that followed felt like a blur. Every time I looked at Amanda, I saw her differently. Her smirk, her dismissive attitude, the way she played with her phone like she had nothing to hide. But I knew better now. I kept replaying those messages, that one photo, the feeling of betrayal that had taken root deep inside me. Every glance she threw my way was like a punch, and I wasn't sure how I was supposed to act around her anymore. I started doing some digging I should have done from the start. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, more lies she was hiding. I remembered the night I found her phone and I started asking around. I reached out to some of her friends, people I thought I could trust, asking if they knew anything about Jake or any other guys she might be messing around with. Most of them just shrugged, said Amanda was always a little difficult, or that she kept her personal life private. But I didn't trust that. Something about her story didn't add up. One night I decided to follow her. I didn't want her to know, I needed to see what she was really doing when she thought I wasn't looking. I parked a block away from our apartment and watched her come home, acting normal, like nothing was wrong. But then she pulled out her phone and slipped inside quickly, locking the door behind her. I stayed across the street, knees trembling, heart pounding. I saw her go into the bedroom, lock the door, and then I saw her slip her phone out again, texting. The messages lit up the screen and I saw the name Jake. That confirmed it. I wasn't just imagining things. That's when I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't just sit here and wait for her to come clean or for her to get rid of the evidence. I needed to get ahead of this, figure out what her plan was. I started planning my next move, something cold, calculated, but effective. I didn't want her to think I was just some fool who'd get hurt and crawl away. I decided I'd set a trap, get her to slip up again so I could have concrete proof of her lies. The plan was simple. I'd make her think I didn't know anything, pretend everything was normal, and then catch her red-handed. But I also knew I had to be careful. Amanda was not someone who took kindly to being caught off guard. She was bitchy, manipulative, and she knew how to spin things her way. I had to be smart about this. I started by planting little doubts in her mind, acting like I was still clueless, asking her questions about her day, about Jake, about her feelings. I wanted her to get complacent, to think she could keep using me as her fool. Meanwhile, I was gathering every piece of evidence I could find, preparing for the showdown that I knew was inevitable. This whole situation was turning into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd gone from loving her, trusting her, to feeling like I'd been played for a sucker. I kept asking myself if I should just walk away, if I was crazy for still loving someone who clearly didn't care about me anymore. But part of me refused to give up. I was angry, yes, but I also felt a strange sense of determination. I wasn't going to let her ruin me without a fight. I wasn't sure what I'd do once I confronted her again, whether I'd tear her apart or finally just walk away. But I knew I had to do something soon. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when I knew the truth. The night I finally decided to act was like stepping into a storm. I had everything lined up. The photos I'd taken secretly, the screenshots of her texts, even a recording I managed to stealthily get when she thought I was asleep. I told myself I'd get proof enough to confront her and demand answers, or maybe just to make her realize I wasn't going to be played anymore. For days, I'd been holding it all in, the anger simmering just beneath the surface, and now I was ready to unleash it. That evening, I invited Amanda to sit down with me after she'd come home from work. She was her usual bitchy self, snapping at me about how I was acting weird and reading too much into things. I kept my face calm, even though inside I was boiling. I told her I needed to talk, that I had something important to say. She rolled her eyes, but she sat across from me, arms crossed, waiting for me to get to the point. I started by playing it cool, showing her the evidence, screenshots of the messages, the photo I'd secretly taken, the recordings. Her face flickered with a moment of panic, then quickly settled into that same bitchy smirk. She tried to spin her lies again, saying Jake was just some guy she met at a bar, that she only flirted a little, that it didn't mean anything. But I wasn't buying it. I told her I knew she'd been lying, that I'd been watching her, that I knew about the pregnancy and the affair. That's when her mask really came off. She snapped at me, berated me for accusing her of everything, called me paranoid, manipulative, jealous. She told me I was just insecure, that I was man enough to handle her being a little wild. She even had the nerve to say she was pregnant with my kid, and that I should just be happy because she'd be stuck with me forever anyway. That phrase hit a nerve I didn't even know I had. I felt a rush of anger so strong I thought I might lose control. But I kept my cool. I told her she was a cheating bitch, that I wasn't going to keep pretending I didn't know the truth. I told her she'd ruined everything, our marriage, our trust, our future, and I was done. I said I was going to leave, that I couldn't stay with someone who thought cheating was just a mistake, who lied and manipulated and played me for a fool. She didn't cry or beg. Instead, she just laughed, that cold, bitchy laugh that made my stomach turn. She told me I was pathetic, that I'd never really loved her, and that I was too weak to handle what she was doing. In that moment, I realized something that's been burning in me ever since. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. I was tired of being the victim, tired of feeling hurt and betrayed and helpless. I wanted to make her feel how much she'd hurt me, so I told her I was going to expose her, to tell everyone what she'd done. That if she thought she could manipulate her way out of this, she had another thing coming. I made it clear I'd post everything, pictures, messages, recordings, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Her reaction: she flipped out. She screamed, called me all kinds of names, told me I was a stalker, a jealous psycho, a loser. She even threatened to take the pregnancy test and prove it was mine, just to twist the knife further. But I knew I had her cornered. I wasn't backing down anymore. I saw the fear in her eyes, the desperation, and for the first time in days I felt some small ounce of clarity. I was done pretending everything was okay. I was finally ready to fight back, and she knew it. The aftermath of that night was chaos I never expected. I stayed up late, going through everything I had, screenshots, recordings, even making copies of her texts in case she tried to delete them. I was in a state of shock, but also a strange clarity. I knew I had to make a decision, whether to fight for this marriage or walk away for good. Part of me still loved her, or at least I thought I did, but another part was furious and deeply hurt. I kept asking myself if I could even trust her anymore, if this was something I could forgive or if the damage was too extensive. The next morning I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and I was exhausted emotionally. Amanda was in the kitchen, acting like nothing had happened. She was sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone with that same bitchy smirk. I looked at her and realized that her attitude hadn't changed. They were still the same manipulative, dismissive woman I'd married. I decided I'd get her to admit everything to see if she'd finally break down and tell the truth. I sat down across from her and calmly started asking questions. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I wouldn't see the evidence? She sneered and rolled her eyes, telling me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid. I pushed harder, demanding to know if she was pregnant, if Jake was the father, and if she'd been lying all along. She stared right back at me, her eyes cold and defiant. Then she finally dropped the bombshell. Yes, I'm pregnant, and no, Jake isn't the father, it's yours, so what if I cheated? You're the only one I ever loved. This was just a mistake, a one-time thing I regret. That statement hit me like a punch to the gut. She was trying to make it seem like I was the victim, that her cheating wasn't a big deal, like I should just forgive her because she was sorry and pregnant with my kid. Her tone was bitchy, almost mocking, like she was proud of herself for getting away with it. I looked at her and realized she was still the same manipulative bitch I'd always known, only now she was trying to spin the story to her advantage. I could see that her lies were just that, lies, and I knew I had to decide what I was going to do about it. I felt overwhelmed, angry, and confused all at once. On one hand, I loved her. I still wanted her to be the woman I married, the woman I'd built a life with. On the other hand, I couldn't ignore the fact that she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. How could I trust her again? Could I? Or was this the end? I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I couldn't stay in this toxic cycle. I told her I needed some time to think, that I wasn't making any decisions right now. She rolled her eyes again and said, "Fine, do whatever you want, but you're not getting rid of this baby, you're stuck with me and with her." That last part she spat out like it was some kind of victory. I was left sitting there feeling more lost than ever. I'd come so close to losing everything, my marriage, my dignity, my sense of trust, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever find my way back from this. I realized that I had to choose what kind of man I was going to be. Was I going to forgive her, pretend it never happened and try to salvage what was left? Or was I going to walk away and leave her to deal with the consequences of her actions? Either way, I knew life would never be the same. And deep down, I wondered if I'd ever really be able to trust her again, or if I'd just become another victim of her lies. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless conversations in my head. I kept going back and forth, love, anger, betrayal, guilt. Every time I looked at Amanda, I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who lied to me from the start. Yet some part of me still clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a way to fix this. But another, louder part knew the truth. Trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. I made my decision one evening when she was out shopping. I sat in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection, and for the first time I asked myself if I was truly a victim or just a fool. The answer was clear. I'd loved her, yes, but I'd also let her walk all over me. I'd believed her lies, convinced myself she was just a bitchy woman with a sharp tongue, never realizing she'd been cheating, plotting, lying behind my back for months. I realized I had to take control of my life again, without her. When she came home, I sat her down and told her I was done. Done with the lies, the manipulation, the endless cycle of betrayal. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't be with someone who treated me like a fool, who thought she could play me like some pawn. I saw the panic and anger flash in her eyes, but I didn't care. I told her I was filing for divorce, and that she could keep her pregnancy, her lies, and her twisted version of a mistake. I'd find my own way, rebuild what I'd lost, and find happiness again, even if it meant starting from scratch. That night, I packed my bags and walked out of that apartment for good. The pain was overwhelming, but I felt a strange sense of relief too. I knew I'd be okay eventually. because I'd learned something important. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair. And if someone is willing to betray you so completely, you're better off without them. In the end, I realized that I was not the fool. I was a victim of her lies, yes. But I was also someone strong enough to walk away, to reclaim my dignity, and to start over. Amanda might have thought she had won, but she lost the best thing she ever had: my love, my trust, and my respect. And I don't regret leaving, not anymore. Because sometimes the greatest revenge is simply walking away and knowing you deserve better.